So one of the things that I'm very pleased about with my YouTube channel is the comment section. So more or less every single video I get loads and loads of interesting comments from you guys, and I'd like to thank you for that. I think if I'm being honest too, I think part of the reason for the success of the YouTube comments is that my personal feeling is that if somebody's been bothered to write a long comment to you, I'm not big-headed or prideful or whatever, but I think that those people deserve a reply. If they've gone to the trouble of writing to you and, it all looks sincere and stuff rather than the kind of, obviously there's some that I don't like, the wannabe James O'Brien debating style, just like stupid point scoring. And I don't really take those sorts of comments because it's motivated by ego. But, from time to time, I actually get, well, it's not from time to time, actually, it's a lot of the time, I get some really well thought out responses from the people that watch my videos. And sometimes what's interesting is that people who write in on the comments, it's as though they want me to check their thinking or their thought process or to just run an idea past me. So probably about a month ago, I got one from this Dutch guy, and he sort of wrote in kind of incognito, anonymously and stuff, and said that he was a wireologist. Obviously, I'm having to use code here for the reasons of Gulag Tube. And basically, this guy was really worried because he'd realised what was going on, with Divok and the Maxines when they came out, and basically he kept his mouth shut. And also even when he did change his mind about what was going on, and he still chose to keep his mouth shut, and he wouldn't even bring it up with his colleagues who were also wireologists, because he didn't want to be ostracized by them. Obviously, I think these were his colleagues. He kept on using that word work, which for me it implies more than just somebody that you work with. Colleague, people's work colleagues can become friends and whatever, part of your social circle. A lot of people, particularly academics, I think, they define their very existence according to their job title, and the people that they hang around with tend to be other academic type people that they work with, their colleagues. So this guy, he didn't want to fall out with his colleagues, but he kind of felt as though he should blow the whistle. So if you like, he was he was being pulled in two different directions. And he basically asked for my advice about what he should do. But by the way, the comments are still there. I'm not going to I can't even remember what video it was now. It's because I don't know, I've done 325 of them. Anyway, so I basically said to him, look, you know what's going on. You have a moral responsibility to tell the truth. And that is more, sorry if this is like the bleeding obvious, but that is more important than falling out with your work colleagues who also probably know what's going on, but they're choosing to stay quiet so that they can carry on receiving their monthly salary, and they're not ostracized, and they lose their status in society that's associated with being some sort of prestigious wireologist with, some university somewhere in all probability. I then said to this guy, look, what you have to realize here is that, with all the stuff about Maxine, the Britney Spears concerts, what we're talking about here is probably, in terms of its scale, the biggest crime against humanity that's ever occurred, in human history. And you have the opportunity to blow the whistle as a respected wireologist, but you think it's more important. You're valuing your friendship with these morally bankrupt people who are also choosing of their own free will to keep their mouth shut. You think that that's more important than blowing the whistle on the greatest crime against humanity that's ever occurred? And of course there's been lots of, it's not just the people that have died or been maimed, it's also, the fact that people went along with the lie, the greatest live action role play lie, the crime against humanity lie. People lost their businesses, their life's work. People like me lost their careers because we did stand up and speak publicly without the veil of anonymity. People like my son, and actually his whole generation, lost valuable years, not just of education, but just of growing up. So for example, I think it's like at the end of the school year, they have like a prom and all of that. His generation, they lost all of these big social events that mark the passage of very important years in somebody's life. So there is, sorry to be stating the bleeding obvious here, but what's gone on, you're not just keeping a little secret here, you're keeping a rather large secret. And I pointed out to this guy when I replied to him in the comments that I firmly believe this. There is more to life than just, we aren't just an accident. The world isn't just an accident. Everything wasn't created by nothing. Something, nothing went bang. We don't know what went, all of that stuff. It's complete gobbledygook, right? So what we do know is that we're here for a reason. And this place that we call Earth is just a test ground for us. And it's about whether we make it to the next stage. And when we die, which we all do, are we going to go upstairs, or are we going to go down to the hot place downstairs and be tormented for all eternity? Now, for me as a Christian, I actually believe that what we do here, I'm actually a follower of Jesus Christ rather than Paul of Tarsus. So, for me, what we do here is vitally important. It's not just about what we say. And also, turning a blind eye, failing to speak out, there's a real problem with that. You're in real big problems if you're one of these people like this guy who turned a blind eye because they were prioritizing their friendships and their creature comforts and their status and their monthly paycheck above morality, above love for humanity. So without any prompting for me, this guy said, I think he must have seen some of my other YouTube interviews with people, and he sort of invited himself on. So after a bit, we kind of fixed up a date, and I thought, okay, it's going to be quite interesting. My only problem with it was, like with most nerdy academic people, the problem that you've got is they're on a massive ego trip. So it's hard to get them to explain things using terminology, without using jargon, so it's actually comprehensible. So I was actually worried a little bit about that, but I just thought what I'm going to do with this interview is just ask the questions and then just listen to what comes back. And I was going to put it up on Odyssey because I wasn't going to get him to do any code words or anything like that. I just wanted to ask him, like, what was his thought processes when, first of all, Divot came along. Why does he think that people didn't speak out? Just let him get him to admit it himself, about prioritizing the creature comforts. And then, the final thing would be, again, to talk about the damage from the Britney Spears and just see what would happen, really. I wasn't going to go into it with too many preconceptions. I was just going to let the geezer speak, because I think that's something that's very important when you interview somebody. I know this myself, is, if you're constantly interrupted, it's actually very difficult to get anything meaningful across. Anyway, so yesterday I got an email from this geezer, and I'll read it out. Obviously, when it comes to like Divok or any reference to Britney Spears, I've had to use a little bit of code, but so it comes. So there's no greeting at the beginning. There's no like "Dear Nigel" or anything. It starts off. and obviously this guy speaks Dutch as his first language. So I've come to the conclusion that you and I are too different to ever have a meaningful discussion. Okay. So the interview is off. The difference is based on the definition of evil. You define evil through internal factors, meaning that a person can be evil by himself. And I define evil through external factors. Someone can act evil, but is not evil himself. Someone was led astray and should be put back on the right path, and all is fine. Therefore, the reason why somebody acts evil needs to be researched in detail in order to stop somebody acting evil. Divok is a good example. Through Divok, many people, all of them good by my definition, acted evil because Divok is an evil act. I call Divok a crime. And the moment you know why Divok is a crime, you know that the least you should do is not participate in the crime. Now, this is where, I'll just interrupt here, this is where, I can see this guy is internally conflicted, because he did participate in this crime. He was a willing accomplice in this crime. He chose to keep his mouth shut, so therefore he did participate in the crime. So he says, his own words, being silent about a crime is another criminal act. So I actually agree with that. And one should wonder why people are silent on Divok. Well, it's not a surprise, is it? Why are they silent on Divok? Because of fear, not of fear of the actual virus, but they're worried about losing their salary. That's what they're fearful of, or fear for like losing their job / social status, social standing, fear of being an outcast, fear of losing their friendship group. That's what it really was about. So fear did cause people to keep their mouths shut about Divok 91, but it wasn't fear of the virus. It was actually fear of those things that I've just said. I did not want to act criminal, so I called out Divok as a crime. Now, so far, this guy hasn't really done that. He's not done that publicly. Anyone can just write some waffle anonymously. And in fact, what this guy's done, his version of speaking out is speaking out by writing a fiction story, like a dramatization, whatever you call it. So he goes, now all of this is detailed on my blog through non-fiction, epilogue, and a fictional story. So that's what I was just talking about. The rest, basically. I'll leave you to guess which is the bigger section. Obviously, it's a fictional story. Because the fictional story, you see, he stays anonymous, and he doesn't have to write about his colleagues or what they did. So he's not worried about losing them as friends, because he's not denouncing these criminals. In which both serve as a model to determine where the evil. In my position in an English interview with you, I don't think that I will ever get into agreement based on our complete different definition of evil. So let's unpack this. So this guy, he says, let's just read it out again. You define evil through internal factors, meaning that a person can be evil by himself. Therefore deserves punishment. And although you don't judge, you consider an evil person as a non-person, blah, 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 blah. I define evil through external factors. Somebody can act evil, but is not evil himself. Somebody was led astray and should be put back on the... right, so what I'm getting here is that this guy is denying the fact that human beings were created with free will. God created human beings with free will. Even if you're an atheist, you can understand that human beings have free will. we had the same event, Divot 91. Was I programmed into going along with it? No. Why not? Well, I exercised my free will to blow the whistle on it. On the other hand, this guy encounters the same situation, the same people's pantomime, and he exercises his free will to keep his mouth shut because he's prioritizing his creature comforts over the love of the truth. The other thing as well is he's seeking to do is, and I get this, I think there's a lot of people that went along with Divot who believe this, that they are worried about what they did or didn't do. And they're very, very worried about it. They're very guilty about it. And rather admitting that they were in the wrong and like basically asking for God's forgiveness, true repentance, what they just do is like blame somebody else. Oh, it wasn't my fault that I chose to do X, Y, Z, or I chose to keep my mouth shut. It was somebody else's fault. It was my boss's fault. It was Jill Bates's fault. It was the person who's in charge of the university or who's in charge of the healthcare system in Holland. This is a massive problem. We saw this is how the Holocaust happened in National Socialist Germany. And people thought they could just get away with it by saying, well, I had no choice. When in actual fact, they did have a choice. Even if it meant being shot, that was still the moral thing to do. And in this case, it wasn't about being shot. The worst that happened was that you lost your job. Or in this case, what this bloke's constantly worried about is him losing contact with his friendship group, which is his work colleagues. But I guess another thing that's gone through my mind this morning when I read this email is a guy called Eichmann. So he was the bloke that organised the logistics for the Holocaust. And this guy, he didn't come across as an evil dude. You know, he appeared at the Nuremberg trials. And he was just like this bureaucrat, faceless bureaucrat, no personality, no charisma, no nothing. But this guy was banal. He was boring. He was just humdrum. There was nothing special about this dude at all. But this dude, by being an obedient order follower, facilitated the industrial deaths of 6 million people. So this is the banality of evil, and I think this guy is suffering from it. He's also he's another Eichmann, basically. He thinks that he's done nothing wrong by keeping his mouth shut. He's still worried about losing contact with his friends. But what he hasn't realised is that he actually, by keeping his mouth shut, he participated in the greatest crime against humanity that's ever happened. And people like him. And they need to just face up to that fact and own it. There's a good phrase. He needs to own it. He needs to own his own actions. And rather than blaming other people, I was coerced into doing it. I was led astray. To that, putting it crudely, I would say, bollocks. You were not led astray. You actually made a conscious decision to comply with evil. And you complied with evil by just simply choosing to keep your mouth shut because you prioritized your job, your status, the creature comforts that come with your salary above humanity. And all I say to you is shame on you. And you'll have to, you will, when your time here expires, you will be held to account for not just your actions, but the things that you should have done and should have said, but never did. So to these people again, who are just feeling a bit guilty because they know what they've done in their heart, they need to own it and they need to speak up now. Because I think already we're getting to the stage now where, that your opportunity, I'm not going to say this guy's name, your window of opportunity is getting smaller every day because more and more information is becoming known. So you can't blow the whistle on something that's already out in the public domain. Yeah, what you'll then become is You'll become hunted. People will come after you. Like you knew, why didn't you speak up? And I think for many of these cowardly people, this is something that we need to just remind them of, because they are so easily coerced. Just remind them of this. Look, mate, your window of opportunity for speaking out is getting shorter and shorter and shorter as more and more information comes out about what happened. So people will ask you, you knew, but you didn't speak out. Why? Why did you leave it until it was too late? There's still just enough time now for you to speak up about what you kept your mouth shut about, and just basically get down on your knees and publicly apologize for complying with crimes against humanity. And you'll have a better chance of gaining some repentance from God, but also from repentance from the society that you're going to live in. Because people will be extremely annoyed with you, putting it in very, very polite terms. So to this guy, I urge you to speak out, and I urge you to do it not as a fictional story, but I actually urge you to, if it's not on my YouTube channel, on somebody else's, you need to come out and tell the world, show your face and tell the world about what you knew when you knew it. And also why you chose to go along with the lie that led to the greatest crime against humanity that's ever occurred. So with that, wishing everybody, including this guy, God's blessing. Yeah. So God bless.